The next one, it's the video. We're going to talk about the video you showed me. I'm going to let you talk first on it. The digital game ownership discussion.
Yes, indeed. I'll go to that part right now. Good. Yeah, it's obviously for the last what at least 10 years now we have access, direct access to digital ownership of games on the Xbox One, especially because since the end of the 360 era, people can now like copy their disc, put onto the hard drive for a better performance, or not better performance, but to have direct performance of the console itself. So especially with Halo 3 and other games like Remember Me and stuff like that. That was Remember Me is only for the 360 title. It's not Xbox compatible at home now, so it's that sucks, you know. So it's those other games as well. So especially now Xbox One, PS4, now it's all digital down from the store. Good, right? As you know, very convenient for the average gamer. But now we're starting to see over the next how many years now, especially within the next 5 to 10 years from now, especially on the Xbox or PS4, where digital libraries of our consoles will probably be deleted altogether, or be null and void, or just basically obsolete, or just you just can't take access to them at all because of the servers involved maintaining the digital services. You know, they start to excuse me, they start to cut that out after a certain amount of time with certain generation of game systems. As you can tell with the Wii shop and all, the Nintendo shop, you know, the Wii U shop got shut down last year or two, you know, as an example. So the average Wii player, Wii U, Wii player, but so which one you go to, you know, they can't access their games until anymore after they got deleted from the actual hard drive of the games. That's okay at first. You get to keep your digital games at first. But with Microsoft's Xbox One, from what I hear, is that once until the support ends with the Xbox One systems, now these digital games are just basically useless. You can't play with them at all. So what's going to happen for the next at least not a year or two, maybe like 5 years from now at least, people will start to rise up, or even want to call it rise up, like perhaps riot, in a sense to Microsoft. Hey, what's going on with my games? Why can't I play my games anymore? Unless you're the Xbox One. So it's yes, of course. What Rachel Nelson said that you could play every Xbox One game on the Xbox Series X and S as one example. Unfortunately, you know, that's not the case with the 360 game titles as well, and the original Xbox One. So, you know, it's iffy. What we're going to see for the next few years from now, Triple J, is that you're not going to have no full ownership of your games, even if you paid for them. And now, with as one example, SteamPower.com, aka Steam, now they have a policy that they're forced to put onto customers saying that you may not be able to own your games after purchasing them. You basically can't own them, just buying the rights to them for that temporary usage. So it's going to be a slow transition into understanding this technology of digital ownership. I wish they can change that around because at one point with Nintendo and all, when you buy Nintendo products back in the 90s, like the Super Nintendo, you get to keep the game physically, obviously, and then play anytime you want to until the game croaks or the system croaks or both. So it's just that, because they said you own rights to it. So it's old as Nintendo's policies back in the 90s that you own the license of a copy of the game, not the actual copy itself or the actual game itself. So it's nothing surprising to most older gamers, at least they keep track of the laws, keep track of the trends and all in these ownership of the games. So it's going to be interesting to see what the next 5 years what's going to happen of its actualness of digital library, not digital libraries, but lack of controlling or owning your digital library of games that Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, or whoever these companies are just take that away from you and they say, oh, you didn't download that game. Oh, you didn't buy that game. Like they did with that Bayonetta game, the Bayonetta DVD movie that I bought. Well, it's not DVD, but I bought DVD later on. But the digital copy, this is a personal story of mine. Digital copy of Bayonetta Blood Moon, the movie, what it's called. I bought for $5 on sale. Got rid of it off my library, telling me I didn't pay for it. and now it's back on my library again as of like this year. So I will complain about the matter, see to them. So it's just that one example. Like you got to keep track of it, and it's hard to do that as an average gamer, an average person just trying to play for the sake of free time. So
Yeah. Um, let me start off with let me start off what I'm about to say with this statement. Boy, do I hate modern gaming. Um, and it's not. And to be on, it's just this all digital direction. I'm really not affected by what Steam wants to do because I haven't purchased a game on Steam since 2012. So, um, if they want to take away games that people have paid for, that's their business. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying it's not going to affect me personally, regardless what they do. But yeah, we get. I mean, these. This is why the all digital ownership or did all digital games is a bad thing, and you already see companies starting to abuse it because um, they can say you no longer own your game even though you paid full price for it, or you no longer own this because we don't have the licenses anymore. What does that have to do with someone who already downloaded it to their console? When Metal Gear Solid 2, when Metal Gear Solid had to get the licenses back to use the historical footage in 2 and 3, I think. They didn't go around to everyone's house and say, "Do you own Metal Gear Solid 2 or 3 for any console? Because we gotta take it back."
yeah,
Um, anyone who still had those copies of the game could still play them as much as they wanted. Um, so yeah, so I mean, this is another reason why I'm going back to why I go back to retro with most of my money. Um, as a matter of fact, I got Quackshot showing Donald Duck right here on Sega Genesis. I can play that
nice.
on my Sega Genesis anytime I want. I can play Toe Jam and O in Panic on Funkatron anytime I want. And I don't have to worry about an online server or Sega saying, "Oh, you don't own that game anymore." Short of them coming to my house, which would be a bad idea.
And with some resources too in the long term.
So, yeah. So I mean, this is uh, this is just how they can basically game developers and like console developers especially are getting control. It's if everything's online, everything can be taken away at any time.
Hmm.
And what Dr. Games 101 said, well, every game on the Xbox One's going to be ported to the Xbox Series. Great, so you got to pay another $60 or more if you want the same game that you had. Who wants to? I mean, if you want to pay, if I wanted to pay like 150, $200 for multiple copies of a game, I would have done that when the game first came out for its original system and kept copies in plastic. I don't want to buy my games all over again. Unfortunately, I sold most of mine, so that's why I'm getting them back now. But that's a different story. That was my idea. That was my decision. Um, I didn't have some company saying you don't, even though you paid money for this, you don't own it anymore.
Hmm.
And it's just bullshit. And honestly, I don't think many people pay attention to this, but I do see a lot of people making their own videos on YouTube saying why I'm going back to retro gaming or um, why modern gaming is no longer because I feel like gaming, despite a few uh, outliers, modern gaming is like the dark ages of gaming.
Hmm.
Microsoft keeps releasing dud after dud, like Redfall and Starfield, and then um, they claim they lost the console war, they and then they are signing games over that are over the PlayStation with when they have had like 4 months on Xbox One. But again, but at the same time, it's basically like we're being told, yeah, if you buy a digital game, you own it as long as we want you to. And no, I paid to own the game. or to own my copy of it. And that's why I think go back to retro gaming, because honestly, PS2, 360, PS3, you're not going to really get any better than that. I think some games have went down since um, since the Xbox One and PS4. I have to say. Again, there've been bright spots, but I mean, I liked like a Dragon Gaiden. I like Shadow of War, but Shadow of Mordor was originally a 360 game. Um,
Yeah, I
so
remember.
with the 360 games, which is mostly what I play on my Xbox One if I'm not watching YouTube. Uh, yeah, it's just another reason to go back to retro, and this is another reason why, because now PC games are trying to say you don't own it digitally.
Of all these decades too, because back 20 years ago, before Steam started to start to get more popular, back in the 2000s, you had to go to your local Best Buy or your local what's it called, um, Nobody Beats the Wiz, and buy games physically, and
Yep.
it'll be like Hitman 2 or Alien vs Predator 2. Those are the games I bought from the store and all. And they'll be like say, "Oh, it's cost $10 with a disc and all," and then you need to sleeve the disc in order to play the game, obviously, and also the code to play online, especially. But that's it. You own it. And when the servers shut down, there were people to take over and start to make their own servers, like Alien vs Predator 2, for example. And then 20 years later, it's still thriving, or still has people still playing the game to this day. And that's a good thing to some players. So that preservation of games, it's one thing to preserve to get rid of games as a company, whatever. It's another to prosecute or to penalize games for preserving your work, stuff that you made in the past. That's a bigger problem too. It's one thing, like I said, it's just one thing where things start to get a lot of business of a company or a sale, whatever, and all of a sudden the gaming company say, "Oh, you can't make that, produce that, or maintain the copy or maintain the servers because we say so as a company." And even though we're out of service or we're moving on certain different projects and all, that's still a problem for the companies like Nintendo. As especially them, they hate people preserving their games as of last 10 years now. So
Yeah, I mean, just to put this, just to compare this to like PS2 gaming. What if someone said, "Oh, you can't play Metal Gear Solid or Metal Gear Solid 2 anymore because you don't own it, even though you bought it on release day"? Oh, you want to play Max Payne? You don't own that anymore,
oh yeah,
and we're not selling it, so you can't play it.
and
You
you
know
can't
it.
pirate it.
Yeah, so I mean that's what it will lead to basically. Um, but I mean these games, the difference between those games and what we're talking about is those games they can't take away if you own them physically. The whole game was on the disc. It didn't need an online server to run. I never hooked my PS2 up to the internet. I didn't try out on gaming until the PS3 360 era. Even though
Definitely.
I had the internet adapter and I later had the PS2 built. Well, by the time I got the built-in one on PS2, I already had 360. But my original PS2 was the fat, like blocky one where you had to screw the internet adapter um, on the back of the console, um,
Yeah.
and I never connected the Ethernet. So but like I said, any game I want to play on my PS2 that I own, I can play it. If I want to play Quackshot or Sewer Shark on Sega CD, I can play it, and as long as I got power, electricity, no game company can tell me otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that protection and ownership seems to be disappearing really fast when it comes to digital games.
And the other gamers, they look at this current technology as like an ownership of sorts. In my perspective, that is, it's the perception of reality is kind of like different for the younger gamers, where it's like, oh yeah, I own this game on Xbox One and Xbox Series or PS4, PS5. The companies are going to take it from me. And all of a sudden, when they realize they get older, by the time they reach their teenage or if not adulthood, all those games have been deleted from their library all of a sudden. Like it's like a shock to them. I'm going to be one day to them, you know.
Yeah. So, like I said, the more they push this draconian style of digital ownership, I think you're just going to push more gamers back to retro. We were excited about, see, as gamers, we were excited about the possibilities of Xbox One and PS4 and digital games, so you didn't have to get a game from the game store or wait for it to be delivered. You could just download it and play it right then and there. But if this is how it's going to be used against gamers, maybe gamers are better off going back to the past. And the
Indeed.
past is not, and the past, especially with PS2, PS3, 360, the past is not that bad.
Hmm. Time Crisis, Metal Gear Solid, Zelda games back in the 2000s and earlier. You know, it's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing.
so, I mean, going back to the past is not such a bad idea. I mean, a lot of the games from the past are better than the ones coming out now.
Mm-hmm. Because
Um,
most of the makers are hate games over here and too. That's the screwy part of the production of these games. Like how you hire people that hate gaming, hate playing games, make your videos from the start of it all. It's just doesn't make any sense. So that's just that
yes.
one sense. That's one another issue too altogether. I should have thought about not talking about that, but it's another issue too. You know, and now all of a sudden there's these gamers out there. Well, you want to call them gamers? Oh, they are gamers actually, but they're an age group on Triple J. I forgot his name though. He purposely for the last year now created this movement online called SaveTheGames.com or something of that sort. He's from Europe, and he talked about how us gamers, and at this rate though, so it seems like impossible to tell the EU, the European Union, at least that one entity, to preserve games or to make sure that games are not being deleted from the libraries of these companies, we want to call them. So it's kind of going one step further to advocate an organization with this particular group of people from Europe. So I just want to let the guys know out there to look it up and see what he's talking about and hope you tell them the truth some means and ends. Because let's face it, we may hate politics, we don't want to get involved in politics, but politics love our money and they take taxes from us. So it's kind of like you might as well take part in it somehow, some way, you know? So,
At least be aware of your rights and be aware of when a company is abusing your rights, or denying your rights. That's
oh yeah.
and like I said, uh, with how disappointing modern gaming has been, um, unless something changes, I think you're going to just see more and more videos on YouTube of, hey, I give up on modern gaming, but I'm going back to retro, and here's why.
Oh yeah.
Anything else to add, or ready to move on?
One more thing. I just want to say to you guys that if you're listening to, especially of a certain age, let's say you're 40 and under, especially as gamers, you do have rights to your own personal ownership of things. Where you have ranging from your computers, your TVs, your beds, you name it. So it's kind of like these companies can't just say come to your house, literally say take our stuff back because it's been 5, 10 years later, and we don't want to make those making model of those beds or those TVs or computers and that sort. So don't let these companies tell you otherwise. Tell you that they're your mommy and daddy's got to tell you what to do with your products. You own them, you earned them, you made money and paid for those products. So know your rights. JFK, John F. Kennedy, the president from the 1960s, he said to you guys that you have a right to ownership of your as a consumer, gamers, movie watchers, you name it. Like back in it was 1961 before his death, he created the JFK Consumer Bill of Rights. One of them happens to be the right to be informed. And he has a right to be informed what's going on with his companies. If they're not going to tell you otherwise, then every right to fight against them legally, if not professionally or wherever. I mean, hopefully this leads to violence and war and aggressions over this stuff. But let's hope in the next 10 years, it's gonna be by the book, and take it from there. So that's all I got to say for the matter.
Yeah, and speaking, like, how this has been going on for movies, again, why I have physical movies. No one's taking that from me unless they burst in my house and actually try to take it.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Did it? They're not gonna take my fucking Bad Santa movie, you know?
Yeah.
You seen
Anything
Bad
else?
Santa before, right, Triple J?
Yeah. Anything else to add, or ready to move on?
Right. Well, recommend watching Bad Santa, guys, and Bad Santa 2.
Well, that you would have to be left up to public. That would
Discretion.
have to be left up to individual perception.
Yeah. I'm ready to move on.
All right.